Welcome back to the Cleveland Baseball Talk podcast. I'm Joe Noga, joined by Paul Hoynes. Hoynesy, you're just back from Kansas City, where the Guardians lost 2 out of 3 over the weekend. I'm just back from Cooperstown, where I witnessed Tom Hamilton get his award going into the Hall of Fame on the broadcaster's wing in Cooperstown. Just an amazing weekend all around on that side. Not so great for the Guardians, dropping 2 of 3 in that series. Of course, splitting a doubleheader on Saturday. What'd you take away from what the Guardians did on the field? And we'll get to the good stuff here in a little bit.
Yeah, I think it was a missed opportunity, though. They've been hot. They'd won 4 straight series, starting with Houston before the break. And this was a chance to, keep the pressure on Detroit, keep the pressure on the front office to make a move to help this club. And they kind of, stubbed their toe against the Royals, who have a losing record, and are in, third place behind them in the AL Central. So, not a great weekend in Kansas City.
One of the big takeaways from the weekend, Stephen Kwan hitting a home run, his third home run in the last few games. And it looks like after the injection and the rest that, Kwan looks like he's feeling more like himself, more like the Kwan that we saw at the beginning of the season.
Yeah, he says he's feeling better, that the wrist is feeling better. He's able to get through the baseball, a lot more with his swing. Vogt said he's, his swing has some whip to it again. So they've noticed that. And of course, he's playing, a Gold Glove left field.
Yeah, it's always good to see that. And we saw the return of Gabriel Arias at the beginning of the series. He's back after the ankle injury. And I don't know if it's a surprise or not, but he's back at shortstop, and that's, what did you learn from Stephen Vogt about how he plans to deploy the infield with Arias' return and with the presence of Brian Rocchio?
It looks like they're going to mix and match with 3 guys in the middle infield, Joe. It seems to me Arias has the inside track on shortstop, at least right now. Rocchio is moving to second base, and Daniel Schneemann will be kind of intermingled with those 2 guys, either at second or short or right field. But right now, it looks like Arias at short, Rocchio at second, and Rocchio's never played second in the big leagues. So we saw him for 3 games against the Royals. He looked okay. Didn't look as comfortable to me as he looks at shortstop, but he's still got a really good arm to play over there, really good range. I don't think it's going to take him a long time to get it used to it, Joe, but the deciding factor to me, I think, was probably Arias's arm, and we saw it, in that in the series against in the first game of the doubleheader against on Saturday night, where he threw Bobby Witt out on a bang play at first base from a ball in the hole where this thing must have been 100 miles an hour, Joe. I mean, he let it go. So, that's a big weapon. And I think that's why the Guardians probably are going to lean toward Arias at short.
Yeah, it's, Stephen Vogt always says that Gabriel Arias' arm plays anywhere on the field, shortstop, even when he was playing once in a while in the outfield last year. They believed that he had a strong enough arm to do that. Rocchio really, in the time that he got to play shortstop while Arias was injured, he sort of cemented at least the opportunity to stay on the big league roster by what he did at the plate.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I'm wondering, the move to second base, will that affect his hitting? Because he really was, he was starting to come on. I think he was hitting 277 since he, was brought up on July 1st to play shortstop to replace Arias. And now he's moved over to second base. Hasn't had that, 3 games. You really haven't, it's a small sample size, so we've got to see him more. But I was impressed by the way he swung the bat. One of those guys has to hit, Joe, hopefully. Arias hit a home run in the loss yesterday, home run and a double, which was encouraging.
And all of this means, like you said, fewer at-bats for Daniel Schneemann, I think, is going to be the result. But it really is the role that Daniel Schneemann is sort of meant to be playing right now on this team. Swinging the bat from the left-hand side. I think, with Rocchio being a switch hitter, he's going to get a few more opportunities there. Even if they want to give Arias a day off here, I wouldn't be surprised to see him not in the lineup today in the opener against the Rockies, just because he is coming back off that ankle, and you don't want to play him 4 games in a row or whatever, burn him out right away. So Schneemann might suffer a little bit for this, but he's well equipped to handle that role of coming off the bench late in games.
Yeah, and he can help at third base when Jose needs a day off. He can play all short, second, third. I think hopefully if when he plays right field, he can get going, Joe, because they need some help in right field. That is a vast wasteland out there right now.
Well, we saw the Guardians offense countless opportunities throughout that weekend, particularly in the game on Saturday, the first game on Saturday, miss out on scoring opportunities late in a game that went extra innings, and then leaving the bases loaded in the first inning on Sunday, unable to score, and then the Royals just turn it over to their left-handed rookie on the mound, and he sort of kept them in check.
Yeah, just brutal, clutch hitting over this 3-game series. Something they had really done well in this hot streak of theirs, but they had just over 200 with runners in scoring position in the 3-game series. Stranded, I think 24, 25 runners in the 3 games. Just they needed a big hit and they never got one, Joe.
Yeah, and part of the reason Carlos Santana, who continues to be in the lineup, a prolonged slump right now. What'd you learn from Stephen Vogt about why Carlos Santana might be pressing right now?
Yeah, I think, Vogt was pretty honest when I asked him about it. He said, this time of year, meaning the deadline, which is Thursday, produces different emotions from different players. And at least the indication to me was Carlos was pressing. He didn't want to does not want to get traded. I know that for a fact. And he has been traded 3 times at the deadline in his career. So he knows he knows the signs and he knows how this works. And I think he'd like to finish this year in Cleveland and probably finish his career in Cleveland.
Yeah, it's a possibility. Throw out. Yeah, obviously, Carlos Santana is a professional. He's not tanking in order to, decrease his trade value or anything like that. But just the fact is, it's in the back of your mind. Maybe it does affect your performance on the field in a negative way. Once they get past the trade deadline, if Carlos Santana is still a Cleveland Guardian, what do they do with him if he's not able to snap himself out of this funk?
Well, he's, traditionally, if you look at his numbers, Joe, he's a pretty good second half player. And I think that's what the Guardians are counting on. So if they don't trade him, if they don't move him, I think, Carlos will be able to take a deep breath here and, be a productive hitter again. Because right now, he has such a knowledge of the strike zone. You see him swinging and missing a lot. And that just looks like a guy that's, trying to do a little too much to prove his worth.
As far as if you were to handicap it, if you were to put it on a scale of 1 to 10, chances that Carlos Santana is still in a Cleveland uniform this time Friday, 10 being very likely, 1 being unlikely that Santana will be here. Where would you rank it?
I think 7, because obviously he's still playing great defense. But if you're a contender and you're going to go after a first baseman, the first baseman has to be productive, right? You're going to go after him for his bat, and right now he's struggling.
There's a team out there who's lost a big bat for a little while, at least in New York. When you heard that Aaron Judge has a flexor tendon strain, what was your reaction?
Yeah, I'm surprised that that Mike Trout isn't a Yankee right now, Joe. That's what I'm surprised that they haven't made some kind of huge deal. But obviously that the Yankees know what they need, and they usually get what they want too.
Yeah, that's definitely the case. All right, over the weekend, I'd be remiss if we didn't mention Nick Kurtz, the rookie for Oakland. I'm not Oakland, the Athletics. Nick Kurtz, the Sacramento / Las Vegas Athletics rookie first baseman, had a game for the ages, went 6 for 6 in a game, a 15-3 win against Houston in Houston. And he hit 4 home runs, 19 total bases, 8 RBIs. The first rookie ever to hit 4 home runs in a game, the 20th player overall to hit 4 home runs in a single game. I think 2 or 3 of those balls went into the Crawford boxes in left field. He's a left-handed batter, so opposite field home runs, and just an amazing night It's being called one of the greatest single game performances at the plate of all time. What did you think when you saw the highlights of that one?
I, I was wondering, Joe. Well, it doesn't matter what I think. I was wondering what the Guardians think. He was the fourth overall pick in last year's draft. The Guardians had the number one pick and took Travis Bazzana, who is, just off the IL and playing at Double A Akron right now. And the A's have this monster at first base who could very easily be wearing a Cleveland uniform right now.
Yeah, and he's possibility that he could be a strong candidate for Rookie of the Year in the American League. Just you're right, they did pass on him, but did they have a reason to pass on him? Was there a reason that Cleveland looked the other way when considering Nick Kurtz?
I'm not sure, Joe, but I think they were on Bazzana from the beginning. They were looking for a middle of the diamond player. People have told me you can't draft a first baseman with the first overall pick. I'm not sure why you can't. Especially the way Kurtz is playing, and they could have. Yes, they had a couple first basemen in Kyle Manzardo and Josh Naylor, but they traded Naylor during the winter, and they probably would have done that even if they had drafted Kurtz, no matter who they took in the first round. So interesting. It's an interesting move. Right now it's paying off for the A's. And, you can't really, I hate to, you can't really put two guys head to head right away. Obviously, Cleveland is in a different position than the A's. The A's are rebuilding. They can afford to bring up their young guys. The Guardians, at least started the season with the sense that, they were going to be a contender, that they were going to have a chance to win the division. They could bring in Santana. They have Manzardo. So, but still, it's right now. It's kind of you kind of like, is it? You have to put it in the back of your mind. Was it a swing and a miss by this front office?
Yeah, and you have to remember also, like you said, every player that's drafted, their timeline and their development to the big leagues is different. They're all on different paths. As far as Bazzana goes, he looked like a very major league ready player at the time they took him, or at least very close. But they all need, once they get into getting to an affiliate and sort of learning what the pro life is like, they all have their own level of adjustment and their own time frame to get there. So yeah, like you said, there were opportunities that were there for Kurtz that haven't shown up yet for Bazzana, and that's why. So yeah, just something to keep an eye on, obviously. And Bazzana's had a pretty good weekend himself. He's doing well in his return to playing after the core muscle injuries. It's something to be excited for. Maybe looking forward to next season, the eventual ascension of Travis Bazzana. All right, I did want to talk just briefly about the weekend in Cooperstown. Hoynesy, I'm telling you, that place is like Disneyland for a Gen X baseball fan. I showed up there, and I think the first thing that hit me after the drive, which you have to drive through upstate New York and all these winding roads, and it's not exactly the easiest place to get to. But once you're there, you're just sort of overcome with this sense of like nostalgia and the small town feel, and just a wonderful place to hang out for the weekend. And topping it off at the Legends Parade at the end of the night on Saturday, just seeing every like living major league Hall of Famer who showed up for the weekend, and they parade them down Main Street, and they get off in front of the Hall of Fame, and they get out of these trucks, and it was just this neat game where there's fans lining the street and seeking autographs and pictures and things, and the players would get off the trucks and they would either go directly into the Hall of Fame to go into the cocktail reception, or they would go out and sign autographs and be with the people and the fans and all that. And you were looking at the guys as they got off the trucks, and you said, is this guy going to go inside, or is he going to go by the fans? Cal Ripken, immediately went to the fans, started signing autographs, and signed, I think, until his hand fell off. Guys like Randy Johnson, Pedro Martinez, and Mariano Rivera posing for photos. I saw Ken Griffey Jr. I shook Ken Griffey Jr.'s hand. 12-year-old me would just die. It was like the pages of my baseball card book coming to life. And normally, as a reporter, as a journalist, you're supposed to be neutral. You're not supposed to be a fanboy, but you can't help it I had access as a reporter to the cocktail reception in the gallery, in the plaque gallery. There's Mike Schmidt, there's Joe Torre, there's all these Hall of Famers just milling about and eating hors d'oeuvres and having drinks. And well, yeah, you're by Larry Doby's plaque on the wall. It was just the coolest experience, and to be there for that. And on top of it all, to be there for Tom Hamilton and CC Sabathia, who were just first class Hall of Famers. Hammy's speech was remarkable to get there and experience that. I know you were literally busy doing covering the games, covering a doubleheader in 110-degree heat, but were you able to pick up on anything that Tom talked about in his speech?
Yeah, I loved Hammy's speech. I loved the 4-H reference, Joe. Maybe you could fill the fans in about that, or fill our
Yeah,
listeners in.
yeah. Early in Hammy's career, he thought he had gotten his big break. He got called into the station manager's office, and he thought, oh, I'm going to get to do Friday Night Football or something like that. And they said, no, you're going to cover the 4-H competition where they judge the cows and the
At the
pigs and the
state fair
chickens
or something?
at the state fair, at the Jefferson County Fair near Waterloo, Wisconsin. And that drew a lot of laughter. The funny thing is, where I parked in the media lot in Cooperstown was the 4-H lot. As I'm hearing this, and I'm like, yeah, and I'm parked in a grass lot outside, the Clark Sports Complex, and it smelled like a cow pasture. You stepped out of that car, and
You were
Cooperstown,
looking.
you're in a rural setting when you get out of the car in Cooperstown. So just amazing weekend. Tom Hamilton deserves all of the accolades and all the honors bestowed upon him this weekend. CC Sabathia, another fantastic speech as well. I thought that it was very poignant where he brought up the line. He said, I don't want to be the last member of the Black Aces. I don't want to be the last Black pitcher elected to the Hall of Fame. And he's one of only 3 Black pitchers in the Hall of
4, I
Fame
think.
now.
I'm
I think
sorry.
it's 3. It's
Yeah.
Sabathia, Fergie Jenkins, and Bob Gibson. That to me really stood out and really sort of struck me that now in his next steps forward, he's going to advocate for maybe the young players who don't get the opportunities on the showcase circuit and that kind of thing through the Players Alliance that he's part of. Just a really great all around weekend in Cooperstown, and a lot of stuff that you don't normally get to see, and it was great for the Guardians to be represented there so much.
Who was in from the Guardians to come up and listen to Hammy's speech, Joe? Who came up?
Pretty much everybody was there that could be there. Obviously, Jim Rosenhaus was there, his play-by-play partner. Ryan Mitchell, the play-by-play voice of the Columbus Clippers, got the call up to handle the weekend series in Kansas City. So, Rosie was there, Bob DiBiasio, Curtis Danberg, Bart Swain, all of our friends from the Guardians sort of PR staff, as well as Jim Thome was there, Mike Hargrove was there, Mark Shapiro was there. They did a panel discussion after Hammy's speech on the 1995 Indians, the 30th anniversary of that team. So that was real special. Chris Antonetti was there. I walked up to him at the during the speech at the theater, the Opera Theater where they held it, and I said, how are you able to be here when you're supposed to be trading Stephen Kwan? I thought, and that got him to laugh, which I'm glad that happened because it could have gone the other ways.
You could have had a scoop, Joe.
Yeah, well, it didn't happen, but yeah, a lot of folks were able to make it out to Cooperstown for Hammy's speech and just to be there for him. It was great. And to tell you, you already know this, but just how much of a pro and how much of a good person Tom Hamilton is. He made everybody in that room at the reception that the Guardians held afterwards. He worked that room like it was his wedding reception, making sure that everybody that showed up for him, he at least shook their hand and, chatted with them for a few minutes. He had so many family members there. There were more than 80 members of his family there. So just a really great thing. And Paul Dolan actually gave a toast at the end of that reception and talked about how, when Larry Dolan, his father, described the players who were his favorite players, Earl Averill, Lou Boudreau, those kinds of guys. When he described them through the lens of Jimmy Dudley and Jack Graney. And so that's how sort of Paul Dolan connected Tom Hamilton to the game of baseball and the sport that he loves is, he's the mouthpiece for this organization. And really it was sort of a really touching speech that he gave.
That's great, Joe. That's man, you captured it. It's such a cool weekend, a good, just a good moment for baseball for sure.
Well, I told everybody who would listen that I want to be back there next year for your Hall of Fame induction, and I want to be back there the year after that for Kenny Lofton's Hall of Fame induction. I want to make going to Cooperstown in the middle of July an annual trip for myself, because that was about as much fun as I could pack into one day in upstate New York. And, 10 and a half hours worth of 12 and a half hours worth of driving didn't change that. So we will definitely make that a habit, I think, in the years to come. Hoynesy, that's going to wrap up today's edition of the Cleveland Baseball Talk podcast. We'll get to the Hall of Famers that we expect who are still active major leaguers. That'll be our talking point for tomorrow, something to look forward to, and we'll open up this Rockies series as the Guardians come home for the week. So we'll talk to you then.
Good deal.